Welcome to Weekly Word, UT Martin's award-winning public affairs program. Weekly Word discusses the issues and events that affect the UT Martin campus and the community. Now with this week's guest, here is your host, Bethany Meeks.
I'm here with Dr. Pig, an English professor and the current president of Phi Kappa Phi. Hey, Dr. Pig, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Well, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Let's see. I've been at the University of Tennessee at Martin since 1989. I'm currently a professor of English. I teach English. I work with secondary education students, and I also teach some in religious studies. I am this year's president of Phi Kappa Phi, Chapter 127 on this campus.
All right. For our listeners that don't know what Phi Kappa Phi is, can you explain to them what that is?
Sure. Phi Kappa Phi is the oldest and largest of the honor societies whose intention is to recognize and encourage superior scholarship and integrity in all academic disciplines. Each academic discipline has its own organizations that recognizes excellence within its area, say for example math or chemistry or physics or English. But Phi Kappa Phi embraces all of those disciplines, and it is intended to promote the idea of excellence in learning, the notion that learning is a value in itself. The love of learning, to foster the love of learning, is the purpose of the organization. The UT Martin chapter of Phi Kappa Phi is a rather old one in terms of the history of our institution. Our listeners may not know that that University of Tennessee at Martin began as a 2-year institution and became a 4-year institution in the 1950s. In 1962, a group of faculty approached Phi Kappa Phi asking them if we could have an organization, a chapter on this campus. We were turned down in our initial request simply because we had not been a 4-year school long enough. We were asked to organize an honor society patterned after Phi Kappa Phi, and in 1971 we were granted our charter to be a chapter of Phi Kappa Phi, and we have maintained that. We've grown through the years. We have recognized lots of students, and our students have been among some of the most prestigious of those who have graduated from the University of Tennessee at Martin.
Well, that's great. It sounds like a wonderful, wonderful society to be a part of. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you mentioned earlier, you are the president of Phi Kappa Phi. So just tell our listeners, what does that entail to be the president?
It involves working with an executive committee. I delegate responsibilities to various people involving our meetings, program chairs. There's a secretary, there's a treasurer for collecting dues. I guess you would say it's in many ways like many organizations in terms of having a kind of ruling group to help the president work through some of the challenges that are necessary in moving the organization forward.
And you mentioned having a ruling group. Now, are these students that are a part of this, or is this other faculty that are a part of the group, whether they're a treasurer?
Typically, the positions such as secretary and treasurer are faculty members who are members of Phi Kappa Phi, typically from their undergraduate days, or if they have joined Phi Kappa Phi, as I did, based on my undergraduate record when I came here. We do have a couple of students who are involved in offices and are part of the executive board. Yes.
Okay. Now, who all can join Phi Kappa Phi?
Phi Kappa Phi is an invitation-only organization. It is for juniors and seniors. We have on campus an honor society recognizing first-year students called Phi Eta Sigma, and students may become part of that. I suspect the overlap between those who are initial honor students in Phi Eta Sigma and those who are invited to become members of Phi Kappa Phi will see a significant overlap. In terms of requirements, the top 10% of seniors and graduate students, we're talking overall GPA, are invited to join, and the top 7.5% of juniors are eligible to join.
Okay. Well, besides the stipulations to join, what all is required of new members or just to be active in Phi Kappa Phi?
It's an organization that's primary purpose is to recognize past accomplishment and to encourage future activity. There are publications that deal with matters of education, concepts that will be helpful to encouraging someone in the academic pursuit. If it's not a social organization in the same way that some other kinds of fraternities or sororities would be, we have interacted with student groups to recognize academic activities on campus. In fact, over the years we've been involved in several of those. Our primary mission is to recognize, to encourage, and to foster scholarship. Let the love of learning continue is our motto.
That's great. I realize that you are having a recognition at the end of this month. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Sure. In the end of the first year and the end of the second year for freshmen and sophomores, for those students who are in the top 3% in terms of their GPA, we send letters to them recognizing their accomplishments, letting them know that we are proud of them, that they should be proud of themselves. And what actually happens is the following year, particularly for those who are sophomores, they are likely to get letters letting them know that they can become members of Phi Kappa Phi. So if we do a recognition of sophomores, this would be people who were sophomores last year. They're already juniors this year. Most likely they will be eligible to receive full membership opportunities in the organization as early as this spring, if they meet the additional requirements of being in the top 7.5% of their junior class.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about, there's going to be a speaker at this recognition, and can you tell our listeners what the date for that is?
The date for it is October the 30th, 7 p.m. in the Watkins Auditorium.
Okay, and now there will be a speaker at this recognition, and who will that be, and what will they be addressing?
The speaker for the fall ceremony is Dr. Chris Baxter, an associate professor in the Department of Accounting, Finance, Economics, and Political Science. And his address is entitled V.O. Keyes, Southern Politics, Then and Now. Obviously, being a political science professor, he's going to look at the intricacies of politics in the American South. Obviously, a timely topic for what we're moving toward with our national elections. Phi Kappa Phi has a couple of lectures each year. The fall lecture and recognition ceremony in February of each year. We also have the Muriel Tomlinson lectureship. Muriel Tomlinson was a professor in the Department of Modern Foreign Language, now part of the Department of English and Modern Foreign Languages. And again, the intention there is to invite someone to speak who is a member of Phi Kappa Phi on campus. We have, of course, our initiation ceremony later in the spring, where we typically have an off-campus speaker. Those juniors and seniors are inducted into the organization, and new officers for the organization are installed.
I have just one more question for you. What do you see for the future of Phi Kappa Phi?
Phi Kappa Phi is one of those organizations that is likely to continue to do the things that it has done in the past. We've had very active presidents who've participated at the national level of the organization. We have had students to be awarded scholarships to study in graduate school. We have had students who have been awarded undergraduate travel grants through the organization. So there are lots of opportunities for continuing to further one's research, continuing to further one's education as a result of being a member of Phi Kappa Phi. It's also one of those things we talk about sometimes, things that we put on our resumes that will distinguish us from other people. Membership in Phi Kappa Phi is an internationally recognized designation that will be beneficial to all students who join, and it is something to add to one's resume to distinguish oneself from others.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Pig, for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to talk about Phi Kappa Phi. It's a wonderful organization, great history at UTM, and lots of support both from students, faculty, and staff.
Well, thank you. It was great talking to you. Well, that was Dr. Daniel Pig, English professor and president of Phi Kappa Phi.
You have been listening to Weekly Word. If there is a campus event or someone you would like to hear interviewed on this program, contact WUTM News Program at wutmnews.utm.edu. The views expressed on Weekly Word are not necessarily the views of WUTM or the Department of Communications or the University of Tennessee at Martin. Join us every Tuesday and Wednesday on WUTM 90.3 The Hawk.